Okay, we hope the other Zoomies will find their way back. So welcome everyone. As you know, I have been sharing similes of the Buddha, and lately we've been focusing on the hindrances, those things that hinder us in our meditation practice and hinder us from insights that lead to awakening or enlightenment. So they're very important to know about and to know how to let them go. So last week, I talked about the second hindrance, aversion and ill will. And I'm going to stay on the same theme tonight. And tonight I'm going to share a teaching of Thich Nhat Hanh's called The Peace Treaty, which is found in a book of his called Touching Peace. So this is coming from a book written by him, but of course, he took all of this material from the Buddha. So this all originated with the Buddha. Okay. Now, he set this up specifically for couples to use for when they get angry with one another. But I found that it works equally well for other emotions besides anger. It can work for hurt or sadness or, other emotions. So it's very good. And it doesn't have to be confined to a couple. It could be other family members or a close friend. Then for people more distant, that it doesn't feel appropriate to enter into this peace treaty with them, like maybe your boss. You can do this one-sidedly, and it will still help in the relationship. Okay, so I'm just going to read you Thich Nhat Hanh's words. Because a lot of suffering arises when we become angry or upset with our partner or other friends, at Plum Village, we have created a peace treaty, which we sign in front of the Sangha. I would like to explain something about it. The treaty was written to help us live happily together. It should only be signed after lengthy reflection and a lot of Dhamma discussions between the concerned individuals. This is because the treaty is about practice. When one person gets angry at another, if they have a copy of this peace treaty, they will know exactly what to do and what not to do. When we have signed the peace treaty, we have to abide by the agreement. The treaty becomes like the Buddha. We have to respect, follow, and abide by the terms. Otherwise, it can be very damaging. It is better not to sign the treaty than to sign it and then not practice it, because that's kind of like going back on your word. When the treaty is about to be signed, both of us should practice 1 day of mindfulness with a lot of walking meditation. At the end of the day, we may bring each other into the meditation hall or some other special room. It is helpful if our community is present in order to sign the treaty in the presence of the Sangha and vow to respect and practice according to the treaty. So now Thich Nhat Hanh's talking about his monks and nuns where he lives in Plum Village. So normally you just do this in your home with the person you're doing this with. Now, if you do have a good friend or another family member that you would like to have as a witness, that helps us to be more accountable when we have witnesses to things that we agree to. So that's also a good idea. Basically, there are two parts to the peace treaty. The first concerns the one who is angry or hurt. What should he or she do? What should he or she not do? The peace treaty should be signed in the spirit that we both want to live long and happily together. The second part of the peace treaty concerns the one who knowingly or unknowingly triggered the other's feelings. Okay, so part one, this is the one that's feeling triggered and has some big emotion going on. The first part of the treaty is about what the person who is emotionally upset should do and not do. The first point is to refrain from saying things or doing things that can cause damage. When we know that we are emotionally upset, it is best not to say or do anything. It would be too dangerous. We should have something like a moratorium on speech and actions. It is our tendency when we are emotionally upset to say and do things that escalate the feelings in the other person and ourselves as well. We have to agree that when we get emotionally upset, we will refrain from saying and doing things. So like when you're upset, you tend to be in tunnel vision, you can't see the whole picture, and you're probably going to say or do something that just makes things worse. So you zip it at that moment. Now, the second point is that we're not going to suppress our feelings. So even though we're zipping it and not saying or doing anything at this moment, we're not trying to suppress how we're feeling. And we're going to eventually express how we're feeling, but just not when we're all riled up, because we're going to say something not skillful. There will be a time in the future, even if it is only the time of 3 breaths, when it is safer and wiser to express yourself. The third point is to practice breathing on our feelings, taking care of our feelings, take refuge in the island of ourself. We know that a feeling is there. We don't want to suppress it. And we don't want to deny it. We touch it with our mindfulness. In order for our mindfulness to be with us in this difficult moment, we nourish it by breathing mindfully. We produce mindfulness of breathing, and we embrace our suffering in the loving arms of mindfulness. I'm upset. I suffer now. We have to really touch our feeling and our suffering using our mindfulness. We can do it in several ways. Sitting or walking are perhaps the easiest. Go into nature and practice breathing while doing walking meditation. Nature, the vegetation, the fresh air will help to support us. If we need half an hour, spend half an hour. If we need 3 hours of walking meditation, spend 3 hours of walking meditation. According to the treaty, we have up to 24 hours to express ourselves. So basically what he's talking about here is the holding technique that I talk about so much. So that's what we're doing. When we're upset, we're going to do the holding technique until we get ourselves calmed. The fourth point, we must tell the other person that we are emotionally upset and that we are suffering very much. But we have to say this in a calm way. We have to tell him or her in 24 hours. We're not going to let this drag on for days and months and years. 24 hours is the time limit. We have no right to keep it for longer after that. If we do, our feelings become poisonous, and you're also violating this treaty that you've signed. And it may destroy yourself and the person that you love. Now, you may be ready to share in just 5 or 10 minutes if you're used to doing this practice, but the maximum time you have is 24 hours. We can say something like, "Dear friend, what you said this morning or did this morning made me very upset. I suffered very much, and I want you to know it." That's the substance of the message. Then the fifth point is you end with this sentence. I hope that by, you pick a certain time, like say Friday evening, both of us will have had a chance to look deeply into this matter. Then we make an appointment. And he says Friday evening is a good time to diffuse all bombs, big or small, so that we will have the whole of Saturday and Sunday for our enjoyment. If we think it might not be safe to tell him or her directly, or if we're not confident that we can do it in a calm way, and the deadline of 24 hours is approaching, then you use a form that Thich Nhat Hanh calls the peace note. So it's got the date, the time, and then dear, you put in the person's name. This morning or afternoon, you said or did something, and I became very upset. I suffered very much. I want you to know this. And then you say what the person did. Now, it's very important that when you say what the person did, is you're not like sticking your finger at them and accusing and saying, like, you don't love me because you left your dirty clothes all over the floor or whatever. It's just, what would the video camera see if it saw or heard what was said or done? So it's like no inflammatory words or anything. It's just, there were dirty clothes all over the floor, period. No accusations of what you think that might mean about the other person. And then you end the note with, please let us look back at what you said or did and examine the matter together in a calm and open manner. For example, this Friday evening, yours, not very happy right now, and sign your name. So you use, it's best if you can say it verbally, but if you're too riled up and 24 hours is up, then you give the note, and you don't just sort of leave the note on the kitchen table hoping they'll see it. You hand it to them, so you make sure that they've received it. If we use the note, we have to make sure the other person receives it. We can't say, I put it on your table and you didn't look, so it's your mistake. Bad way to start things. This is for our own good, because the moment we know that the other person has received it, we will already feel some relief. It is best to tell him or her directly with a calm voice, but if we suspect that we will not be able to do it calmly, the next best thing is the peace note. And we have to make sure that they get it before the deadline of 24 hours. The next point, the sixth point, is we should not pretend that we're not emotionally upset. Perhaps we have too much pride. We are upset, we suffer, but we don't want to say that we suffer because our pride is too great. Do not say things like, oh, I'm not upset, or why should I be upset? Or I don't suffer at all, or oh, there's nothing to be upset about, or that's not enough to make me upset. Don't hide the truth. We suffer, we are upset. That is the fact. This is a very important part of the peace treaty. Pride should not be an obstacle. And pride can be the thing that destroys relationships. We are committed to each other. We support each other. We are a brother and sister to each other. Why should we be so proud? The seventh point is, while we are practicing sitting, walking, breathing, looking deeply, and living mindfully in our daily life, we focus our attention on the following 6 points. So now this is between something's happened, you're upset, you've let the other know, you've set a date for when you're going to meet to talk about it, and then between that time and the time you meet, you're going to look at these 6 points to get some clarity. So number 1, I recognize the fact that I am sometimes not mindful. I am not skillful at times. I see how I have hurt the other person on a number of occasions in the past. So in this situation, you're feeling hurt. You're feeling angry because something the other person's done. And so you're in tunnel vision, you're seeing them black as coal and you're lily white. me do something wrong? Never. And so what you're trying to do is like squeeze open this tunnel vision and go, oh my God, sometimes I leave my dirty clothes all over the floor or whatever it is. So it's recognizing that, oh my gosh, I'm a human being too, and I screw up and I make mistakes. And it's cracking that open. So as you're doing that and saying that, oh, I've done things that have been hurtful to the other at times, then you're going to be able to see your partner in a more holistic manner instead of just, they've done this horrible thing to me and I'm so upset. Number 2, I have to acknowledge to myself, I have the habit energy of getting angry very easily, of getting hurt very easily. I have to see and acknowledge this fact. If I need to, I should have a copy of the peace treaty with me so I can practice according to it. I must look into this. This is number 3. The seed of an upset emotion is strong in me. I have to acknowledge that she or he is not the main cause of my suffering. The main cause of my suffering is the strong seed of upset emotions in me. It has the habit of manifesting itself so easily. Bring to mind friends who don't get upset so easily. The seed of upset is also in them, but not as strong as in me. So what this point is saying is, if we get really upset, it's probably that this particular kind of situation has happened to us many, many times, maybe especially when we were young. And so we get defensive about this kind of a situation because we've been wounded many times in the past. And so it's just easy to get our buttons pushed or to get triggered when this particular kind of a situation comes up. So it's important to recognize that because, you know, our anger can sometimes be out of proportion to, you know, like there's a couple of dirty clothes on the floor. Why is there such a huge amount of anger? And it's because of all these past woundings. Point 4, the other person is suffering also, and because of this, he or she has behaved in an unskillful way. He or she has watered the seed of upset emotions in me. I acknowledge him or her as a secondary cause of my suffering, and I also remember that he or she is not the main cause. Perhaps he or she is not even the secondary cause. Perhaps it was my misperception that was the secondary cause. Often I get very upset by someone and then find out later that he or she was not the cause. It was my misperception. They did not mean to hurt me. You know, so this is the common thing of you're talking with somebody and they grimace and you think, oh, they don't like me, but they could have had a tummy ache, you know, and has absolutely nothing to do with you, but you just misperceive it. And so that can happen a lot. Point 5, because the other is suffering, he or she is just seeking relief. He or she seems to be destroying me, but it is because he or she suffers terribly and wants relief. When I get emotionally upset because something is said by the other person, I suffer. And I believe very naively that if I can say something stronger and make the other person unhappy and suffer, I will get relief. This is unwise, but most of us do it. I have to look to see that the other person is not really trying to destroy me. He or she is only seeking some relief from their own suffering. So this helps bring up compassion in you, and then it just makes it easier to sort of sort things out. Point 6, I see that as long as he or she continues to suffer, there is no way that I can be happy because this is a relationship. Happiness is not an individual matter. If the other person suffers, I suffer. In order to not suffer, I have to help the other person not suffer. This is very true in a community of practice. When someone in the community is unhappy, the whole community cannot be truly happy. Everyone has to seek a discreet way to help that person. When that person has overcome their suffering, happiness in the community will become authentic. We all know that. There is a Vietnamese saying, when one horse is sick, all the horses in the stable refuse to eat. The above 6 points are the objects of our practice of looking deeply. We have a few days before Friday evening. That is the time to practice looking deeply. The 8th point tells us that during the process of looking deeply, if we realize our unskillfulness or unmindfulness, we should apologize right away. We shouldn't make the other person feel guilty any longer. There is no need to wait until the Friday evening. If we find out that we got upset because we have the habit energy of responding too quickly or some misunderstanding, we have to go to the other person and say, I'm sorry, I was so unmindful. I got upset so easily and without any basis. You didn't do anything to harm me. You didn't have any intention of making me suffer. It was just my fault. I apologize to you. Please forgive me. The other person will be relieved. Or they may continue to suffer for a while, but eventually they'll get over it. It is better to stop the cycle of suffering as soon as possible. The 9th point tells us that if by Friday we feel we are not calm enough to talk about the matter, we should ask the other person to postpone the appointment for 3 days or so, or another week. We have the time. If you are not calm, it is not time to talk about it yet. We need to practice for a few more days. And that's just because we tend to say very inflammatory or hurtful things when we're not calm. So it's so important to get calmed down first. Okay, so that was on the side of the person that's triggered. And now we go to the person who has done something that has caused has triggered anger or whatever in the other person. These are the 6 things that one who has triggered the other's emotional upset should practice. First, when I see that the other is emotionally upset, do not make fun of him or her. Try not to say, I haven't done anything, and you're emotionally upset. You have to respect their feelings. A feeling takes time to die down. It has a lifespan, a moment to be born, some time to stay, depending on whether conditions are favorable or unfavorable to extend its life, and then it will die down slowly. Even if I see that his or her feelings are not founded at all, that he or she is completely wrong, I won't press them to stop being upset right away. That is the natural law. I will help the person to leave them alone so the feelings can die down. Yeah, I can remember so many situations like working with couples who are recounting to me some upset that they're having, and this thing will flare, and then one of them will like run down the hall into the bedroom and slam the door, and then the other's running right after them, banging on the door saying, come out and talk. Not the thing to do. Let them stay in the bedroom and get calmed down. Second, after I've heard the other person telling me that he or she is suffering or have read the peace note, I won't press for an immediate discussion, because if I do press while the other is still upset, everything can be destroyed. I will abide by the treaty and accept the Friday evening appointment. In the interim, I will have a chance to look deeply at the situation. What did I say? What did I do to trigger their upset? So while walking or breathing practice and looking deeply, you're going to consider this. Third, I will tell him or her that I have received the note and that I will be there on the appointment time. This is very important because if he or she knows that I have received it, they will get some relief. If it's possible for me to say, I know you suffer, I know, this too is very helpful. Fourth, if I can apologize right away, I will do it. Don't wait. But when I apologize, I will not make any attempt to justify myself. I won't try to give a reason why I behaved as I did. That will make the apology less effective. Just apologize. I'm sorry, I was not mindful and understanding. When you say, I'm sorry, but I was tired or whatever, it's like you give the apology and then you rip it away again. So it's just like, I'm sorry, zip. Then later when you're talking about it, you can explain the circumstances. But at the moment of the apology, just, I'm sorry, zip. Fifth, practice breathing, taking refuge in the island of myself in order to see three things. One, I have the seeds, the habit energy of unkindness and anger. I have triggered, I don't like this wording, I have made the other person angry. I don't think we should ever think that we make other people. I think we all have to take responsibility for our feelings. So I'm going to just change this to saying, I have, done something that's triggered unhappiness in the other person. Acknowledge that, even if now I have not seen my fault and their suffering. Don't be too sure that I'm not responsible. So like you may think, oh, I didn't do anything. Well, maybe you did something. So again, this is, it's like they're upset. Like, I'm not a bad person. I don't do bad things. Like we have to go, oh yeah, I'm a human being. I screw up. I make mistakes. Sometimes I don't say the most skillful things, or, sometimes I'm tired and I leave my clothes all or whatever. So it's being able to accept that you're not some kind of a perfect human being that doesn't exist. So that's again, opening up, getting out of the tunnel vision. Point 2, I was suffering. I may have thought that by saying something strong to them, that I would get relief. This is the wrong kind of relief, and I have to recognize that seeking that kind of relief is a mistake. I shouldn't hope to suffer less by making another person suffer. Point 3, I will look deeply and see that making him or her suffer also makes me suffer. Their suffering is my suffering right now. I have to see the nature of interbeing of their suffering. If I do something to help them stop suffering, I will benefit from it also. 6th point, if I can apologize, I'll do it right away. Pick up the phone, don't even wait till you get home. To apologize even 1 minute sooner is better. There may be no need to wait for the appointment time. When I apologize, again, I will not attempt to say anything to explain why, just straightforward, I'm sorry. The peace treaty is a Dhamma practice. We may like to add one or more points to it so that it will be more relevant to our particular situation. Study it deeply and prepare carefully for an occasion to sign it. The best way of signing it, now this again is, he's talking to his group of monks and nuns, is in a meditation hall in the presence of the Sangha. The witness and support of the Sangha is very important for our practice. Be harmonious and happy. We will all benefit from our practice. So this peace treaty we want to do as early as we can in a relationship. So it's there so that when some upsetting situation comes along, we can pull it out and use it. And as I said, all of these points that Thich Nhat Hanh has made are found in the suttas. I don't have the sutta references for you, but Aya shared last week that in sort of her monastic rules, the rules for monastics of how to be harmonious, how to get along in a group of monastics, it's practically verbatim with this. And that's coming straight from the Buddha. Okay, now sorry, I forgot to do this beforehand, but I want to bring up the peace treaty. It's found in, I think, lesson 3 on our website. So let me just take a moment here and get our website up. The green one? Oh, thank you. Oh.
We haven't seen the screen.
Oh, for a bit.
Oh,
Sorry about that. Can you Zoomers see the website? Yep. Okay, they can, but
Okay,
we can't in the live room. Okay, now we can. Okay, so in the menu here, you go to teachings and you come down to basic teachings, click on that. And then you do lesson 3, difficult emotions. And then you scroll to the bottom of this to where it says, next step, download the PDF of the entire lesson. So you're gonna download that. And then when you open it up, you have to scroll a little bit. That's where the holding technique is. Very important. And then here's the peace treaty. And this is the part that I just read to you. So we'll flip down to the actual treaty. Here we go. Okay. So in order that we may live long and happily together, we, the undersigned, wishing to restore our deepest love and understanding, gratefully agree as follows to these terms and conditions. And remember, Thich Nhat Hanh suggesting that you spend some time really thinking about this and discussing it. You don't just sort of read it and sign it. And he suggests that you just have a whole day of mindfulness, before the day of signing. So now this is part 1. So you put your name, the one who is angry, sad, hurt, lonely, etc. Agree to. 1, refrain from saying or doing anything that might cause further damage or escalate our feelings. So this is where you're going to zip it at the beginning when you're upset. But I'm not going to suppress my feelings. Going to practice breathing and taking refuge in the island of myself. And once calm, I'll tell the other who triggered my feelings about my feelings and suffering. If it's taking a long time to calm down, I'll let them know before 24 hours are up by delivering a peace note. And then step 5, ask for an appointment for later in the week to discuss the matter more thoroughly. Number 6, don't say, oh, I'm not angry. It's okay. I'm not suffering. Nothing to be upset about, or not enough to make me angry. So don't do that. Number 7, look deeply into my daily life while sitting, walking, breathing in order to see the ways I have been unmindful or unskillful. How in the past I have hurt the other person because of my own habit energy. How the strong seed of anger or sadness, etc., planted in me from multiple previous woundings is the primary cause of my present feelings. And how the other person's behavior watered the seeds of my feelings. And this is the secondary cause of my present feelings. Or maybe they've done nothing and it's just your assumption. So, or how my negative assumptions about the other person watered the seeds of my feelings. How the other person is suffering. And if they knowingly water the seeds of my feeling, it is because they are only seeking relief from their own suffering. And as long as the other is suffering, I cannot be truly happy. Number 8, apologize immediately without waiting till the appointment time as soon as you realize any unskillfulness or unmindfulness on your part. And number 9, postpone the meeting if you're not yet calm enough to just discuss things. Now we're on the second part. So I, the person, and of course, if you're doing this, you want to do this ahead of time. So sometimes you're going to be the one who's triggered and sometimes you're going to be the one who's doing the triggering. So you both have to put your names in both spots. So I, the one who has, I don't like the has made, has triggered the anger in the other person. Number 1, respect the other person's feelings. Don't ridicule him or her and allow them enough time to calm down. So just means don't press for an immediate discussion. And then confirm the other person's request for a meeting and assure them that you'll be there. And when you're setting a meeting, you want to make sure that, it's not late, so neither of you are tired. It's not, before a meal, so you're hungry. It's not when you have a meeting to run to right afterwards. Like you have, choose your time wisely when there's not going to be a lot of stress. Number 4, practice breathing and taking refuge in the island of myself to see how, A, I have the seeds of unkindness and anger in me, as well as the habit energy to make the other person angry or unhappy. B, I have sought relief from my own suffering by making the other person suffer, if that's the case. As I said, sometimes it's an assumption on the other person's part. And C, by making them suffer, I myself suffer. And 5, apologize as soon as you realize any unskillfulness or lack of mindfulness without making any attempt to justify yourself. And then you just say, we vow to abide by these articles and to practice wholeheartedly. And you sign it. Anyway, so this is a very skillful means to deal with upset emotions in a relationship. So I open it now for discussion or questions.
Version of that for a 3-year-old.
You probably can. Yeah, you have to think about it, but you probably could. We have some 2 copies of a book in the library called Sharing Mindfulness with Children. Have you seen that one? Yeah, there's 2 copies in the lending library, Sharing Mindfulness with Children. Thich Nhat Hanh believes that children can probably start meditating around age 7, and he has a couple of cute little meditations that are shared in that book. It's not just him. He only has a couple of articles in there. It's a whole bunch of contributors. Yeah.
You mentioned having a one-sided agreement with, say, like work colleagues or?
Yeah, it's just that you keep this in mind so that even though you may not formally enter, because you don't feel it's appropriate with that person, when you get upset, you make sure that you don't talk about it until you're calmed down. Or maybe if the other person is upset and trying to deal with it, you could maybe say something like, look, can we take a break, and can we talk about this in an hour, or can we talk about this tomorrow? You can try and gently try and persuade the person to give it a bit of time. But you want to get if you're the one that's upset, you want to give yourself time to calm down and then look through all those different points that he had mentioned, so that when you do talk about it, you're doing it in a skillful way. Anything from the Zoom room? Yes.
I usually find it relatively easy to not say or do anything when I'm upset, but stopping that inner voice from carrying on and going on that inner roller coaster.
Yeah.
How do you stop that and turn that off when you're upset?
Yeah. So for me, I use the holding technique. So you want to get out of your head. You want to get out of your head. So you quickly scan your body, you find out where you're holding that tension in your body. And, if you're really upset, then there's probably going to be some strong tension, most often in the heart or solar plexus chakra, but can be anywhere. And so then you've got a strong sensation to put your attention on, and if it's not strong enough, then I recommend like fast walking or running meditation, so that you're having to focus on your feet touching the ground, and then you can use Thich Nhat Hanh's method of counting how many steps you take on the in breath, how many steps on the out breath. So you really occupy your mind with neutral things until you start to calm down, and then you can maybe switch to the holding technique. Just hold your attention on where that tension is, and then when it settles, hopefully then you have some clarity to go through all the other steps he's talking about. But anyway, for me, those are the two best, like moving fast and being very aware of those points, or doing the holding technique. Have you tried either of those? Have they?
I haven't tried walking fast,
Yeah.
but I can give that a go.
Yeah. And, give yourself 3 things to be aware of: feet touching the ground, knowing when you're breathing in and count how many steps, knowing when you're breathing out, count how many steps. So it's just a lot of stuff you're giving your brain to do. So it doesn't have the space to focus on the upset.
Is it the same premise of EMDR, so rapid eye movement in psychology? Or
No, I think it's different. Yeah. Because that you're trying to connect, different aspects of the brain. This is just a major distraction kind of technique. Yeah.
It's similar though, because
No.
I've done EMDR.
Okay.
Like you're focusing on where you're
Oh.
getting attention.
Oh,
And
okay.
then as you go through EMDR process,
Yeah.
it slowly concentrates.
Oh, okay. So you are. Okay.
Yeah,
So
as the
maybe,
mind-
yeah, I've just read about EMDR. I never trained in it. Yeah. So, okay. So maybe it's working also by distraction.
But I think you're right, like like there's the vagus nerve that's
Yeah.
triggered and calmed down in the process.
Yeah.
with this fast walking, then you're, the objective is to calm the amygdala down, essentially.
Yeah,
And
well,
to-
you see, if you stay in your head, you're continually throwing logs on the fire, right?
Yeah.
Because every time you're thinking these angry thoughts or upset thoughts, you're just fueling this emotion. And so by focusing on something neutral, like your feet hitting the ground, then you're not fueling the emotion.
Yeah. So eventually you'll come to your less primitive brain then.
Come to your which?
Less activity in your primitive brain and your amygdala.
Yeah.
Because you're not ruminating, you're not
Yeah.
feeding this fire,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
it'll dose that sooner or later.
yeah.
Can you do the same thing with cycling?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, anything
100%.
that's, yeah. You wanting to do something physical but neutral. Remember last week I talked about removing the punching bag from the psychiatry unit. You don't want to do something that's sort of violent because then that's going to feed it as well. So you want it to be a neutral activity, running up and down the stairs, skipping rope, cycling, running, fast walking, but something neutral.
But the one challenge for you, John, is you cycle so much, so you could be cycling and still ruminating in your head. So you want to
Okay.
start like counting your breaths or counting your
Your kids.
cadence, something
Yeah.
that you're doing something that's just sort of
Well, it's a different place to
rhythmic.
focus your
Yeah,
mind.
Yeah, you want to
Yeah.
give your brain something
Yeah.
to be occupying it.
Yes.
I think.
I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I
Because you
agree.
could just cycle completely on remote control and just be completely spinning out in your head.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but it is good, like energy, adrenaline, that kind of thing, but you want to add something for your brain.
Road trip.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's okay, it'll be okay. What, yeah, something.
Yeah.
Where'd our little book go? I have no idea. You could check in the cupboard. Or you could just.
Okay.
Yeah. What comes to my mind is, how do we discern when it is appropriate to actually voice something versus say like, removing ourselves from a situation and doing removing our mind or distracting our mind with something else versus actually maybe having the courage to voice or speak something at that moment to really kind of address the situation so that it can.
Yeah, it's all depends on how calmly you feel you can talk and how skillfully. Yeah, if we're only doing these taking, like he said, it could be 3 breaths and then you can do it, but if you're really irritated, like all upset, then most likely it's going to be unskillful what comes out of your mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what you're focusing on. Yeah. When is that settled?
And sometimes, yeah, like you're at work and somebody's done something, whatever, sometimes you could just go to the bathroom, wash your face, perhaps.
Hide out in the cubicle for a few.
Yeah, and then come back and be able to say something,
Yeah, I just learned recently that often I just literally need to literally step outside and
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
softens, like.
Yeah.
And you can feel that peacefulness.
Yeah.
Where there's wisdom.
yeah,
Versus,
yeah,
Mhm.
thank you.
great.
Okay, so you want me to end with compassion?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, we were talking about compassion. This is trying to see compassion, see compassionately your partner. May have triggered you. So first of all, bring to mind someone you know with great physical or mental suffering, and while being aware of their difficulties, direct these phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. And now send the phrases to yourself. May I be free of my pain and sorrow. May I find peace. Now think of someone who's been very supportive of you and send the phrases to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. Now bring to mind a neutral person, someone you don't have strong feelings of love or hate towards, and send to them. May you be free of your pain and sorrow. May you find peace. And now bring to mind someone you have a difficult relationship with. Send the phrases to them. May you too be free of your pain and sorrow. May you too find peace. May all beings be free of pain and sorrow. May all beings find peace. Remember that all beings face great potential suffering, no matter how fortunate their immediate circumstances may be. This meditation does not eliminate suffering. What we are doing is being able to acknowledge suffering, to open to it, and respond to it with a tenderness of heart, which allows us to join with all beings and realize we are never alone. May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed. Lise and family, Blair, Siman, Mudita. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you, everyone.